to you, Conor. Lovely. Whenever you're ready, Conor, go ahead.
Lovely. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining me tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Conor Ward. I qualified from the ACC in 2008, which still doesn't feel that long ago to me, but probably some of you on the call were like in primary school at that time, right? And it'll make me feel really old. But yeah, so what I'm going to talk about tonight is what I love doing, which is helping particularly new graduates, but chiropractors from sort of any level of experience get busier in practice and happier in practice. And to give you a little bit more of my history since 2008, when I qualified, I can't say that chiropractic was my main priority, because I was rowing at the time, and I was rowing like 25 hours a week and doing chiropractic about the same amount of time in my first practice that I worked at in Bracknell. And I stayed there for 6 years. I built up to be the busiest chiropractor in Bracknell. I then went on to Peru. Once I finished rowing everything, went down to Peru and worked in Peru for a year in South America, practicing chiropractic in a language which I did not learn before I went down there, which is a challenge. I then came back to the UK, opened a practice over in Surbiton in London, worked there for 7 years, and then set up a charity in Uganda last year. So I was back and forth to Uganda and sort of did our first successful mission trip down there with a group of chiropractors, and then I came back to the UK to work here in Putney, which is where I'm sitting right now after seeing some lovely people today. Now, from that history, you may not have been able to glean, but I have been an associate for all of my career in chiropractic to date. And for some people, being an associate for 15 odd years may seem like a long time. And I remember way back when I was in college being in a business class at an ACC, and the lecturer saying that the ultimate goal for all chiropractors is to own their own practice. And I remember thinking at the time, that seems a bit strange to me, because there's a lot of chiropractors who work as associates. And I kind of feel, which is why I'm writing a book called The Associates Approach, kind of feel like there's this unspoken belief within the profession that you haven't really made it until you open a practice, and that the ultimate sort of definition of success is owning your own practice. Well, I'm here to tell you that as a chiropractic associate, I can guarantee that I earn more because of the contract I'm on, and I use the time that I'm not in practice to invest in other areas of my life, which has resulted in having more flexibility, more free time, etc., etc. So that's kind of where I'm going to be going with the talk tonight, talking about what makes an associate a success. Okay, because a lot of people, I feel, go into being an associate and it doesn't work out very well for them, and they feel like the answer to that problem is to set up their own practice and be in charge of everything. So we're kind of going to debunk the myth a little bit, and sort of talk about ways and means for you to be a success if you choose to go into being an associate in your first few years in practice. So any questions at any point, you can write them in the chat. I'm going to go through kind of the content of the talk initially, and then we can have a back and forth. So apart from being an associate, I'm also a chiropractic coach, which is part of the other stuff I do outside of being in practice. I practice 3 days a week, and like I say, I work in a nice busy practice, so I'm pretty busy in those 3 days. I also then have mentored over 60 chiropractic associates now in practice, usually from being new graduates right the way through to being in practice for a few years like myself. And yeah, so there's a few things that commonly come up with chiropractic associates that hold them back from being successful. And by success, by that definition, what I mean is that they feel fulfilled in practice, and that they are earning enough money to make themselves happy and make themselves be able to afford everything they want in life. And I don't know if you're aware, but chiropractic is one of the easiest professions to make money in, if you choose to look at it in that way. We make money, of course, by helping people, and sometimes because we get into the profession because we generally want to help people, the idea of making money can feel a bit icky. Like it makes us be like, oh, talking about money isn't very nice, isn't very British to talk about how much you earn or how much it costs. And we are kind of like the unpopular kids at school being in private practice, looking at all the popular kids over there, the GPs, the surgeons, and everybody who goes, let's clap for the NHS people. They're doing a great job. Nobody claps for the chiropractors. We stayed open during COVID. I was helping people with back pain and neck pain during that time. I was some of the only people that got to touch these people outside of their families. Where's my clap? Anyway, that rant over. What I want you guys to take away from today is some ideas for whenever you get into practice as well. And some of you are going to go into a practice where there already are some patients for you to take over. Some of you are going to go into practice where there's no patients and you're starting from scratch. And some of you, 2 people I've coached in the last year, go into a practice where there are too many people, too many patients, which is not a common problem in chiropractic, but it does exist, particularly in areas where there's not that many chiropractors like Scotland. 2 of the chiropractors that I coached this year had so many people in their diary that they felt completely overwhelmed, and they felt like they didn't even care if the person started chiropractic care, because if they started chiropractic care, that was even more people to take care of. And they had so many new patients coming in and so many people in practice, they got completely burnt out. So I don't want that situation for any of you either. So let's just rewind a little bit back to what I was saying about being an associate versus being a clinic owner. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both of those approaches. I have some friends who went straight out and opened their own practice. It's not something I would generally recommend because you don't have any experience, and one of the big challenges is the expectation versus the reality of what we think it's going to be like whenever we're a student in practice, and then what it's actually like. And one of the big challenges that people find is retention. Basically, they say to people, you have L5 disc herniation and it's going to take 6 weeks for it to get better, and I'm going to be seeing you 3 times a week or twice a week, whatever it is in that time frame. And the person comes for 2 or 3 visits and then drops out of care. So it's very frustrating for newer graduates. They tend to have some challenge, some crises of confidence. And one of the realizations, I think, is that I've been in practice for 15 years, but if any of you on the call today, come to work in lovely Putney Chiropractic, somebody comes into this clinic and pays £50 for an adjustment, is paying £50 for an adjustment to see me, 15 years in practice, lots of experience, and £50 for an adjustment to see you, 0 years in practice. Okay, so that is a big burden for some chiropractic associates to bear, feeling like I can't provide enough value. And it takes a little bit of time to work out some of the kinks. Some people have a real difficulty selling chiropractic, and by that what I mean is just whenever we're a student, the idea of somebody paying £150 a week if they're coming to see me 3 times is like, that's like a month's worth of food. How can somebody afford to pay £150 a week? So there's a real feeling of, again, an ick around being able to give value for what you feel is quite a substantial amount of money. Some people have challenges around timing, about going from having half an hour or maybe even longer whenever you're in clinic in college, to maybe being 10 minutes in practice. That is a big transition for some to take. And then obviously, like I say, there's the physical challenges of maybe how many, give me a number, would roughly a student in clinic see these days on a week? Like 10 a week, 20 a week? Yeah, maybe something like that. We're getting some nods, so I'm going to say yeah. So how do you go from that to seeing 120 a week, like physically, as well as emotionally and everything else? So these are some of the unperceived challenges of practice. What I've also noticed, and this is probably one thing to be wary of, is that since COVID, a lot of the, not all of them, I would say not a lot, I say some clinic owners are offering contracts that aren't as financially lucrative as they would have been pre-COVID. So one thing I realized when I came out into practice is I'd never been self-employed before. I'd worked in a bar, worked in a hotel, I'd done jobs where I was employed by somebody who paid my tax, and I worked for my shift pattern, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden I was put into this world where I was self-employed. Now, I will say this on record now, being self-employed in the long term is definitely the best option for a chiropractic associate. Not necessarily the easiest option, but it's the best option from a financial point of view and from being able to have flexibility point of view. Being employed is an easier option because it means you don't have to work out that sort of tax and trying to manage your money type of thing. It's a bit of a thing to get your head around whenever you have, £5,000 come into your bank account that you don't get to spend all of that £5,000. You have to put £1,000 in another bank account to pay the tax man at the end of year, right? So one of the things I try to help people, so I don't know if you maybe are aware, but I run a seminar called the Lions of Chiropractic, which we're in that seminar, we work on like the technique side of things, the mentality side of things, and like all the sort of stuff you would also get in other sort of multi-speaker events. But one of the things we try to bring in is a financial advisor to try and help chiropractors get their head around managing their money. So a challenge for chiropractors whenever they're self-employed is getting things like a mortgage, or potentially sometimes a loan. And so it's good to get your head around those initial things in those first few years in practice. But as I say, be wary of the contract that you get. And I'm sure Christian or any of the guys at the UCA would say, if you have any worries about whether your contract is fair or maybe is potentially not fair, to get in touch with them, and they will probably be able to advise you. If you also want, I'm happy to take a look at your contract and say whether I think it's fair or not. So let's go into, we couldn't get the whiteboard on the old Zoom to work, so I'm going to use the third party non-Zoom one in the form of this one here. Can everybody see my screen? Great. Now I'm gonna have to, oops, that's not. There we go. All right, so I need to make it a little bit smaller so I can actually get to the bottom of it. All right, so say you are going into chiropractic business. You've decided you're going to set up a business. Now, when you set up a clinic or a business, there are certain things that you have to think about. So first off is you have to have a location. All right, so you might be from Dorking in Surrey and think, okay, well, I'm from there, so maybe I want to set up near to my family. So you have to pick a location first of all, and then you're going to look at different properties and let's make that a different color location. That's exciting. We pick up a location. We're going to look at different properties, and then you are going to say, okay, there's some rent that comes in with that. I'm going to have to hire a CA. I'm going to have to pay rates, and you're going to work out all of these expenses. Okay. So we have some expenses. Let's make that red for expenses. Don't like them. And then whenever we set things up, then we're going to have some services. Okay. So services, we're going to be providing chiropractic care. Maybe you have some massage. Maybe you'll have some rehabilitation services, or maybe it'll just be straight chiropractic. All you provide is chiropractic. That's what this clinic provides. When I worked in the last clinic, it was chiropractic and physiotherapy, so it involved a little bit more sort of co-management and interdisciplinary stuff. But you're going to decide what services you provide. Then we need to try and get people in. So we're going to have some marketing expenses. So we might put some stuff out on Facebook. We might do some marketing locally. Let's say that in yellow. But we need to try and bring some people in. And when people come in, we call those guys clients. So we have some lovely clients coming in, and that's what we all got into chiropractic for, so we could take care of the people. And then the last thing you're going to have, hopefully, is those clients are going to pay some money, and you will have some cash flow. You'll have to manage that money. You have to make sure that you pay your team. You have to make sure that you pay your tax, and all of that lovely money also goes towards you buying your house and everything else. Now, what I would say with all of that, all of this can form into a clinic, but it can also all form into being an associate. So as I said, what I realized whenever I was out of practice is I'd never been self-employed before. So when you are employed, we have what's called an employed kind of mentality. Whereas if you're really proactive, you might go out and do a really good job. And, you could be the best barkeeper that, Toddler's Arms has ever seen. Or you could be kind of do what you need to get by, and you'll still be paid the same amount of money, right? Doesn't matter how much real effort you put in. The person who does loads of work is the same as the person who doesn't do as much work. But when you are self-employed, there is a change. So your effort that you put in will result in how many people you see in practice, which will inevitably make your cash flow different. Okay, so somebody who puts in the bare minimum and does an average job will have average outcomes and see an average amount of people and get an average amount of pay. The people who put in a lot of effort will get more patients through the door, better cash flow, etc., etc. So the challenge that I see with a lot of associates is they go into a self-employed setup, even if they are on an employee contract. Like most of the employee contracts are like you get like a 25 or 30k basic, and then you get bonuses based upon how many people you see, right? But because most of us as students, or up until the time we leave college, haven't ever been self-employed, we kind of go into this self-employed arena with an employed mentality. So some of the things I hear from some of the people I've worked with in the past is that I feel like the person who owns the clinic should be doing more marketing to get me busier. And the challenge I always say to people is, why can't you do more marketing? Like, what's to stop you? There is also, again, expectation versus reality. When we think we're going to take this job with this chiropractor, we think we're going to get all of this mentorship. And my experience of that is it varies greatly from clinic to clinic. So sometimes we go and we think, oh my God, this person's been in practice for 20 years. I'm going to get all of this mentorship. They have all of this knowledge. But the reality is we start in that practice and the person has employed you in that practice so they can be in the clinic less often because they have 3 kids at home and they want to start cycling like Craig McLean, who owns this clinic. He only works 2 shifts a week now. He leaves the rest of the work for us to do. So the reality is that the clinic owner that you might be going to work for, sorry, but sirens in London. The clinic owner you will be going to work for might be so busy with other things going on in their life that your mentorship might be quite low down in the pecking order. So people sometimes compromise the contract they're taking and then get dissatisfied, or it flips the other way around, that they start in practice and they go into it with an employee mindset of like, what can you do for me, rather than recognizing the opportunity they have. So an example of this, a person feels aggrieved that they're on say a 50% contract. They're like, well, I give 50% to my clinic owner, so they should be doing more. I shouldn't have to go out and do my marketing. I shouldn't have to go out and do a screening. They should be doing all those things in order to bring people to come and see me. It's their responsibility to get me busier. Whenever you have like your clinic and you set it up, we talked about the expenses that you'll have, right? Like it costs money to have a clinic. Like it costs money to employ a CA. It costs money to pay the rent, the electricity, and everything else. As an associate, we don't pay any of that, right? But if you open your own practice, most practices, most clinic owners will only, after they take out all of those expenses, take home about, maybe if they keep things really cheap, about 70% of the money that comes in. So if you're on a 50% contract, you don't have any of the stress of working out how to train your CAs or how to balance the books or do any of those things that your clinic owner is worrying about, and you get to take home the majority of that pay. So there's this misconception that like clinic owners earn huge amounts of money from their associates. Most of them don't in reality, especially for the effort they have to put in order to get that person busy. So the way I would like more chiropractic associates, and this is the way, so for example, I work in this clinic. There's 7 chiropractors that work in this clinic. 3 of them have been here for many years and are very busy and very established. I want to get busy. Like for me, busy is about 150 a week. I'm seeing about 110 a week. And so for me to jump that last 40, I'm paying for my own private marketing company to provide with the permission of the owner of the clinic, to provide Facebook marketing specifically for me. So all of the new patients that come from that marketing come to see me. And the reason I'm doing that and paying money out of my pocket is because I know that if I can get to a point where I'm busy, that frees up my time and also brings in more money. So would I rather sit in clinic and have 2 or 3 hours that are empty, or would I rather come into clinic and use the time that I have to do the thing that I love, adjusting people? The reason why I got into the profession in the first place, or would I rather sit there updating my Facebook status? Well, that sounded really boomerish of me. I wouldn't obviously do it on Facebook. I do it on Instagram or Threads because I'm with it and the times, etc. No, but rather than procrastinating and sitting around or chatting to my CAs, I'd rather be busy in practice all day and go home like satisfied that I made a big impact with my God-given talents in chiropractic, rather than sitting and doing something that may be less in line with my mission and my passion. So the way I want you guys to start thinking about the associate position is to think about it as a business within the business. So When we're an associate, our expenses are predominantly the percentage that the principal chiropractor takes. Okay, so we provide services, chiropractic services. Now, there's also a misconception sometimes that chiropractors think if they're self-employed that they can do what they want, they can pick their hours and do everything else. Most of you will be put on a contract, so you are self-employed contractors. That doesn't mean you get to pick your hours and come and go when you want. The only truly self-employed chiropractor is a locum chiropractor, which I did for a year. That's the person who decides, I'm going to work this week, I'm not going to work that week. When you're contracted, like I am here at the clinic, I do 36 hours a week. So actually, there's less flexibility than people think, and this idea that, well, they can't ask me to come in if I'm not, busy or whatever, is not true. You should be coming in, you should be working the contracted hours you have. So you provide services. For those services, you get a contract which provides you with cash flow based upon how many clients you see. One of the big considerations for you guys, and one of the challenges I see working with associates in practice, is that sometimes they pick a location because they think the contract or the chiropractor is good, but actually the location might be an hour's commute, or it might be too far away from their family, or it might be in a really boring area when they want to be somewhere exciting like Putney in London. So when you are considering your offers, make sure that you think about am I going to stay here for like 3 or 4 years? I always say I'm going to stay there for 2 years and end up staying for like 6 or 7. I'm saying I'm staying in Putney for 2 years. Let's see in 6 years whenever I'm deciding to leave. But the reason I say that is you probably want to base yourself like you're setting up business, set up business. You're not going for a year to like see how it goes and blah, blah, blah. Like set up like a business, like you're setting up a clinic. The longer you stay in that practice and the happier you are in that practice, the busier you'll be and the better the investment. So you have time, and it'll take time for you to get up to a point where you are busy in practice. We're going to talk about ways and means to do that in a second. But if you're not happy with the location, apart from the contract, that's the number one thing, the number one reason why I see chiropractic associates leave their position long term. So think of yourself as a business within the business. I'm setting up business in Putney. I have a contract offer from Putney Chiropractic where I do certain hours a week. For me, that's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I have a day off in between. In those days off, on Tuesday and Thursday, I coach people, and then I take Saturday and Sunday off, or sometimes I go and speak at seminars and do things like that. So that diary pattern works for me. The contract is great. I'm happy with the location. I love Putney. As a rower, it's my second home. It's where the Oxford Cambridge boat race goes. And then it's like I get organic people coming through the door. Like I probably get about 3 or 4 new patients from just the clinic, being here for 20 years and people coming up and ringing up. But those people get spread obviously amongst all of the practitioners. So for me to have exponential growth back to where I'm happy, 150 a week, I pay for my own marketing, I do talks, I go out and do screenings. Like I did a screening today, I'm doing a talk on scoliosis next week. None of the other chiropractors are doing that, but that is a way for me to bring new patients into the clinic from my own marketing. And that means I get busier in practice. That means that I'm an asset to the practice. So 2 years from now, Craig better expect me to be coming to him and saying, hey, listen, I started from scratch, I'm now seeing 150 a week. You probably should offer me a better contract or I'm going to go. And he'll be like, well, flip, we can't lose you as an asset. Yes, you can have a better contract. Here you go. So that's the way I want more associates to think about their practice. Now, as I said, how do I clear this now? No, this one's not as easy as the other one too. Anyway, let's just move it out of the way. There we go. Okay, so you start in practice. How many of you want to know a little bit about how to build a practice quickly? I need to see some hands. There we go. The hands are wiggling. That's okay. So to give some context, again, expectation versus reality. Most chiropractors in the UK who set up a practice will operate at a loss for the first year or more. I'll say that again. They will operate at a loss. They will lose money for a year or more before they start to get established enough. Okay? Not everybody, but like a lot of chiropractic practices in the UK will lose money. They have to pay themselves. Obviously, that's part of the reason why they lose money. They will operate at a loss for a year or more. When I came back from Peru, I was like really like, I love chiropractic. And so whenever we opened Surbiton, one of the reasons I sort of became a bit notorious within the profession is I went from seeing 0 a week to seeing over 100 people a week in 9 weeks. So it took me 9 weeks to go from 0 start to over 100. And we had signed up, it was me and another associate who started it from scratch. We both were over 100 within 9 weeks. How we did that is we signed up over 100 new clients before we even opened the door. Okay, we went out to screenings and things, did talks. We sold vouchers for £30. £30, come and see me for initial consultation. We sold over 100 vouchers before we even opened the door. That meant the clinic made £3,000 before we even opened the door. Like, made money before the doors were even open for business, which is great. Good start. Then week by week, it took us 9 weeks to process a lot of those new clients. A lot of them started referring people in, and so then we got up to over 100 a week. When I came to Putney, I started in the last week in October, and if you ever coach me, you'll know that trying to build through December is difficult because people are like, Christmas, and I'm going to see my family in America for 2 weeks, and I have no money because I party every night and everything else. So December is a notoriously difficult time. So I started in the last week of October. It took me 12 weeks to get over 100 a week. So if you want to have that exponential growth in your diary, I'm going to try and tell you some of the secrets to doing that. Okay. Now, there are 3 stages to diary growth. Okay. First step is, especially if you start from scratch, you need to try and get the numbers up. Okay, so that's initial growth phase. In that time, you try to get new patients from anywhere. Okay, Groupon, the worst source of new patients. People who pay nothing for our services, but there's a little, it's like shopping in TK Maxx. There's a lot of stuff you're like, don't want, but every so often you find a diamond and you're like, oh yeah, that's a good bargain. So Groupons, like vouchers, they're like the lowest of the low. Then you have, like, if you go and do a talk, like my scoliosis talk or the talk I did in a company today, they're much better new clients, and they can come in. There's basically 3 big factors in my mind that play a role in how good a patient is. First of all is their knowledge of chiropractic. So if you're giving a talk, or if you have a referral, they probably have a good knowledge of chiropractic because their friend or the chiropractor has told them a bit more about it. Next is their how much they pay to come and see you in practice, right? So a Groupon has low skin in the game. They pay £30 for initial consultation, including like 3 adjustments. That's what Groupon is. Ridiculous. And then you expect them to pay £50 an adjustment after that. Really hard to get those people to convert, but it is possible with certain tactics. But they have low skin in the game. Somebody who pays full price, like full price here, is £120 for an initial consultation, which includes an x-ray with us if they needed it. So £120, if you're paying £120 and then another £50 for your first adjustment, that's £170. You got skin in the game. You're not going to be like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore because I've already paid 150 quid. I've got like high investment, monetary investment. And then lastly, the third biggest factor will be how much trust you can get with that person. Okay, so somebody who's on a Groupon has low trust because they think you're going to sell to them, which you probably are going to try and do. They come in and they pay 30 quid and they're like, he's going to try and get me to pay for more. So they're low trust. Somebody who's a referral is very high trust. My friend Trudy came to see Conor, and she couldn't even walk. Now she's like doing cartwheels. So I want to go see this Conor. He sounds great. I'll pay £120 for an initial consultation. Yes, he got a cartwheeling again. Amazing. So in that initial growth phase, if you're starting from a low number and you want to get to a higher number, you try to accept clients from anywhere. And there's lots of different ways, like I said, that I work with what I call streams of new clients. So we got the stream coming from the clinic. We got the stream coming from my talks. We got the stream coming from the marketing. We got the stream coming from me going out and doing corporate stuff at talks and things like that too. So there's multiple streams of new patients coming in to try and build my diary up. There comes a point where you start to reach capacity, right? Your new patients are coming in, you're getting enough referrals, and you're starting to like get as busy as you can get in practice. When you get to that stage, you can start getting rid of the rubbish new patients. You stop doing group-ons. They can go. They're the first ones. Go get out of here, group-ons. And then maybe you don't need to do as many talks. You can do a talk like once or twice a year just to boost the numbers at a time when things are a little bit lower. And you can start to refine your streams of new patients to the ones that fit your kind of clients you like to work with. For whatever reason in this practice, I have been seeing so many strong women. I started seeing a lady who is a Commonwealth weightlifter, and she was one of those great new clients where they respond really quickly to what you do and think flip chiropractic is amazing, and she referred all these other strong women. So I'm going down, I'm going through the goals. It's like, what's your goal? And they're like, I want to deadlift 180 kilograms. And I'm like, that's twice my body weight. Okay, that's fine. Let's do that. But I love working with them. These women come in and they're like, you know, I'm an athlete. They wear like, I don't know if you know Whoop watches. There's like a HRV thing. There's one lady who I saw today, and she's like anal. She's one of these weightlifter, like exercise nuts. She's like into all her macros and like records everything, calorie counts, does all this type of stuff to make sure like she's performing at her best, right? And so she comes into me and she shows me her Whoop data. And she's like, I am committed to chiropractic for life because my Whoop data shows that on average, the days I get adjusted, my recovery improves by 12%. She's like, nothing else does that. Nothing else that I do improves my recovery as good as chiropractic does. So my feeling is, although chiropractic generally is still associated with back pain and neck pain, in the future of smart technology, I made this prediction about 10 years ago and I'm sticking by it. In the future of smart technology, as that starts to get more refined, we're going to have all this amazing qualitative, non-biased data of people who had things like HRV pre and post chiropractic, and we'll start to be able to have evidence for all the stuff that we are aware of, that chiropractic can stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, can improve recovery, can, you know, maybe even influence things like gut health. So that time will come. So as we improve those streams of new clients, there's going to come a point where you're in excess of your capacity and you're like, oh no, like what am I going to do now? Whenever we get to that stage, we have to change our systems in order to be more efficient in practice, if that's what you choose to do. So anyway, that's that little section over. I'm going to go into building your practice. So there are 4 R's. R, like a pirate. I'm going to say it. R. And these are the 4 R's of building practice. Okay, here we go. So first R is recruitment. That is all of your new patient streams. Okay, so talks, everything else I just spoke about. Recruitment is the first thing, getting new people through the door. Your next R, when they come through the door, is retention. I'm dyslexic, by the way, so if I mess these up, then If you laugh, you're laughing at a dyslexic kid. So don't do that. Retention. So what is retention? Retention is that person comes in, you assess them, and you decide that X amount of visits for X amount of time is the right care plan for them. I'm going to say 3 times a week for 6 weeks is the right care plan for this somebody who has a 9 out of 10 disc herniation with a drop foot. Okay, so retention is being able, first of all, to convince them to say yes to start care, convince them to say yes to the care plan 3 times a week, and for them to follow through until they get through those weeks of 3 times a week to the end, and hopefully then have had a significant improvement in their outcomes, and then potentially, if it's in your remit, decide that they want to come in on a maintenance basis or a well-being basis and commit to coming in once a month, or whatever it is that you feel aligned with, for life, or for as long as they feel they need it. So retention, if you have people, like, here's the thing, and again, this is a stat, right? I do a lot of stats in practice. The big drop-offs in care happen around 6 to 8 visits. And there's multiple reasons for this. One, if you're working with insurance companies normally give like 5-6 visits initially. Some give 10, so some people have more of a drop off around 10 visits. But like, your first progress exam should be around the 12th visit, or at the 12th visit. So we look at how many as a percentage get through from like starting care, first adjustment, through to the 12th visit, and we see where that drop off is. And that drop off is normally around the 6th to 8th visit. Okay, so we work on ways to improve that retention to get through to the progress exam. This is if you do 12 visits, for example. You may be in a setup where, like Christian setup, where maybe they have less visits, but it's like super specific upper cervical stuff, and you're adjusting them and then checking them, and then they're coming in to get checked, sort of ongoing from there. But whatever the setup is, are you retaining the people for as long as they should be coming in? Next, R is the one that people don't do, and it's silly because it's so easy. It's the reactivation. When somebody stops care for whatever reason, they feel great. They didn't really want to be a chiropractic lifer. They went on holiday and they forgot to book back in. Whatever the reason is, do you make it easy for them to come back? And do you ever reach out to them with an email or something to invite them to come back? Like, is there a protocol in your clinic that if somebody hasn't been in for 6 months, you reach out to them and say, hey, Tom, hope everything's great with you. If you are interested, we do a 6-month follow-up that's free of charge for us just to recheck everything with your spine and make sure that your adjustments are holding. If you're interested in that, then please click on this link and book it in, or give us a call on this number. You make it super easy for them to come back in. Tom comes back in and Tom says, actually, well, I felt great whenever we got adjusted, but I've just started noticing it creeping back in. Like, I've got a little bit of stiffness in the morning, and I'm doing those exercises, but I'm not really doing them that often. So yeah, I think I want to start that whole maintenance thing you talked about, coming in once a month. Great, Tom. Well, let's get you started again. So reactivation is where you keep the relationship going with them, and you have what we call touch points. So some touch points might be like if they follow you on Instagram and you're putting stuff out there, that there's a touch point there. If they are on your email list and they say subscribed, then you're having a touch point there. Are you sending them like a birthday card or a Christmas card that has another little touch point and saying, hey, hope you're having a great Christmas. If having a happier spine in the new year as part of your New Year's resolution, here is a Christmas present from us, a free re-examination from Putney Chiropractic. Flipping great. People love to make goals around New Year's, and if they're like, oh no, I should really go back and see Conor, that was really good what he did last time, I should book that in. So reactivation. So when you start in practice, if that hasn't been done, if they haven't really like tried to reactivate any of their old clients, that is a gold mine for you to grow your practice really quickly. Guess what I did whenever I came back in here? I was like, hey, I'm going to go and try and reactivate some of these people who haven't been in for a long time. And the way you want to do it is you want to look at people who maybe were coming in for maintenance care and dropped off the bandwagon, or people who, like I say, have, you don't want to try to reactivate the people who came in for 2 visits, for example, because they probably didn't like chiropractic or they didn't get it. So they're still worth reaching out to, but you want to prioritize the ones who maybe were under regular care for whatever reason. Maybe the chiropractor changed, they didn't like the new style of the chiropractor, and you can say, hey, Jimmy, I am just starting off in Putney Chiropractic. I saw you used to come in and see Jason. I'm taking over some of Jason's client base. So if you want to come and see me, you can come in and get a re-examination for free and just have a chat. The reason I say give things away for free, by the way, is not to devalue the chiropractic examination or re-examination. It's to lower barriers for people who have some resistance, especially if they feel like they want to pay. If people are like, hey, I'll come in and have a chat, then that gives you an opportunity to recruit somebody who will then maybe love what you do and come in. Like, there's people who've been following me around from clinic to clinic, like nearly 15 years. I saw a lady last week and we talked about the fact that she first came to see me in 2009. And so some people, if they love you, I don't know how many adjustments she's had over the course of 15 years, but she's been coming at least once a month in all of that time. So a lot of adjustments is what I'm saying. And so if you're able to recruit somebody in that way, for me, giving them a free chat and a re-examination whenever your diary isn't fully booked means that you're spending that half an hour or whatever it is doing something that might actually change someone's life and may actually build and establish your diary in your community, rather than, like I say, sitting and playing on TikTok. There we go. That's more of a cultural reference than a boomer reference. Last R is the best form of new clients, which are referrals. So does your clinic make it easy for people to send in their friends and family? Do you have a referral campaign? Do you have a referral offer? At this clinic, if somebody sends in a referral, the person gets £25 off their initial consultation, so it costs £100 instead of 125. 120, yeah. And then the person gets £25 off their next adjustment. They get a half price adjustment. It's £25 instead of £50. So they get a little thank you for referring people in. And people want to refer people in, normally, especially if you've done a really good job with them. So I rabbited on for far too long now, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to look at the little chat to see if there's any. There were chats saying that I've only got a little bit of time left. So if anybody's any question, please come and give them to me. Have I got enough time to answer a few questions? I've got a little bit of time. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody got any time or any questions for me in the next 5 to 10 minutes? About being an associate, about what it's like to be in practice, about how we build a diary.
Do you have any plans, Conor, to come away from being an associate ever and build your business up on your own?
Yeah, I think potentially, but so I really value the flexibility of the associate practice. Yeah. So I don't just, but so for example, last year I managed to set up this charity in Uganda. As I said, I've set up the Lions of Chiropractic. I take, like, the thing that most people on this line may not realize is that it's quite conceivable that next year, or if you start in practice, that you could earn over 80,000, 100,000 in your first year of practice. Like that's nuts. There's no other profession that really allows you to do that. My friend who's in the financial district in London says that we work with him to help chiropractors prepare for their retirement and to invest their money, and he can't understand how chiropractors earn so much money. He's like, dude, like people who work 16 hours a day in London for like 7 days a week kind of earn similar to what a chiropractor who works. I said, why didn't no chiropractors work on a Wednesday morning? It's like, why is that a thing? No chiropractors work on a Wednesday morning. Like they work part-time hours and they earn amazingly well. So it's tax efficient. Haha. We got a question from Jimmy, a direct message asking tips and tricks on being tax efficient once you hit 40%. How many of you, I'm going to try and give my short answer to this, which is not easy because you may have gathered I like to chat. So, tax brackets 101. Right, this is not financial advice, it's just general knowledge. Okay, so when you earn the first £12,000, you don't pay any tax on that, roughly. It's roughly about £12,000. You earn £12,000, you get to keep all £12,000. Then up to about £50,000, you're going to pay 20% tax. So, but it's only from 12,000 to 50,000. So it's only for that sort of £38,000, you pay 20% tax. And then once you go over like 50,000, I think it's like 52 or something, you have to pay 40% tax. So Jimmy was asking about the 40% tax bracket. So the misconception that I had and many people have is that when they go over 50 grand, they think they pay 40% on everything. It's not 40% on everything. So if you earn 60 grand, you'll pay 0% on the first 12, 20% on the next 40 something, and then only 40% on the last 10. Okay. So if you become self-employed, you'll probably become a sole trader, okay, initially until you start earning a lot of money. What you do is you have your money that comes in and you have your expenses for the business. So as an associate, if you go to the UCA seminar and have a lovely time in October, then you can claim that training, those seminar expenses back from your tax. So if you were really nuts and you went and did Syntropy and every chiropractic training course under the sun in your first year of practice, and you spent £5,000 on rooms and seminars and expenses to get there, flights, you went to Barcelona, you went to America, whatever it is, that means that that £5,000 gets taken out of the £60,000 you earned. So now you only pay 40% on the 5 grand or whatever's left. So that is probably a lot of numbers and a bit confusing, but the main thing I want you to take away from this is that you don't pay 40% on everything. It's only 40% on the money you earn above the 20% threshold. So eventually you'll probably become, like for me, I am a business. My business is called Greenfields Health Limited. I set up that business in 2013 after I've been in practice for like 5 years because I hadn't really earned enough to be up to set up a business. That point where you're earning is probably about 80,000 plus, I would say. So at that point, because there's expenses associated with owning a business in the UK. So once you are a business, you are contracted to, so my business is contracted to Putney Chiropractic, and the money that is put into my business then gets paid to me. Okay, so I get paid a certain proportion. The reason I do that again is because of tax efficiency. This is a whole webinar in itself, but I hope that clarifies at least one thing that you had a similar misconception, Jimmy says. So yeah, so it's not, you don't pay 40% on everything, it's only on above that. Take that away. Any other questions?
There is another one in the chat box if you've seen it, Conor. If not, I can read it out for you.
Question for us: building practice from zero. Could you give more info, experience, share tips and advices for door-to-door small business visit? So is that, do you mean that you are going door to door, or you're working in small businesses.
Hi, Doc. I
Ah,
asked that
yeah,
question.
yeah,
I mean, like going to visit your neighbor, local community, small business, door to door.
yeah. So my friend did that when he left practice. I did it for a little bit. It's quite like it's hard to get busy and it's hard to earn good money from doing it unless you charge a lot. So there certainly are within London. Like my friend works for Google 2 days a week. So he works in their building, and like because certain companies want to try and keep things in house because they don't want their employees taking time out during the day to go and see the chiropractor and the dentist and the personal trainer or whatever. So bigger companies sometimes have in-house chiropractors, physios, masseuses, personal trainers, and gyms so that their employees can do that healthy stuff and also not take time out of their day. So there certainly are those contracts out there. Probably your best way to look for them would be through things like LinkedIn. But I don't think any of them are going to trump being in an established clinic with a setup. Like one of the guys I am coaching currently works in a side room of hairdressers, and it's a real challenge for him because he doesn't have a dedicated front desk person who can, welcome the people, and then whenever it comes to like booking in their next appointments, he's doing all of that himself, and that takes up a lot of time. So yeah, if you're going door to door, it's either that you charge a lot. So my
Oh,
uh,
sorry. I don't mean like a private door to door visit.
Mhm.
More like like the pre grand opening, the screening, just to get your name out there, get your name cards out.
Your community referral.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I postal, like putting your stuff out, like going through a mailing, it isn't very effective. It's probably about 1% or maybe less that you'll get. So if you produce 1,000 leaflets, you'll maybe get like 10 inquiries, but
Right.
actually in recent years it's actually a lot lower. So it's a very time you can pay somebody, you can pay the postman to deliver door to door, or you can pay a kid to go out and deliver door to door. But yeah, your payback from that is not fantastic. So your
Right.
way to do it would be to target different, like, so for example, at this time of year, the best thing that you can do is go to a fair or a fete, as they're sometimes called in the UK, and set up a stall and bring a spine, talk about chiropractic. Like kids and everything will be like loving the tactile element of a chiropractic model. Um, yeah, and then when you like, so talks are probably the easiest way, because people are often seeking our services, right? But they don't know who to trust, and because like they see videos of people being cracked online, they're like, I don't want to just go to anybody. Like people are looking for a referral. So what I find is even if you go in and you're like so scared of giving talks and you get up on stage and you're shaking and the bones are rattling because you're so scared to be up there, that just because you are in front of them, people are like, oh, they seem like a nice person. I'll go and see them. Their clinic's nearby me. So you can set up all different types of talks. You can set up like I do like coffee and chiropractic, where we have a cafe across the road, hire a room there. People come in, I give them free coffee and cake, and I talk to them about chiropractic, and like they sign up for care, and yeah, it's cost me about 120 quid for the cake and the coffee for like 20 people, and I make that back over and over again because it's £40 for initial consultation voucher. So there's all these different ways of doing like new age sort of marketing, and some of the traditional stuff like sort of classic like newspaper ads and stuff still work for certain populations. So if you've more of a geriatric population, that's beneficial. Like in Putney, like it's funny. So Putney and Surbiton are only about 4 or 5 miles away from each other, but Surbiton just being a little bit further out of London, although quite a like direct train, and had a lot more families. So I saw a lot more families and people maybe in sort of 40 plus category. in Putney, my demographic is much younger. Like I'm seeing people in their 20s, 30s, like a lot of young professionals. So I think your marketing has to be geared towards what your community looks like.
Okay. Thank you for the tip and advice.
Amazing. Well, if anyone's got any last minute questions, then please feel free to put into the chat now before we start closing for the evening. But Conor, thank you so much. That was really great. It's definitely a subject that it gets touched upon during the years studying, but I don't think there's enough sort of dived into it. So it was really great to go into a bit more detail with it all tonight. So that was really great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Before we do go, I just want to give everyone a heads up in terms of what's coming next month. So on Wednesday, the 16th of August, we have Lawrence Tame with us. So please, on the emails, you can sign up to that. There was a slight change in the schedule. So if anyone had signed up to listen to Greg Benham next month, then he is actually going to be coming in 2024. So if you have signed up, then that will be coming next year. And like I say, we've got Lawrence with us next month instead. So I don't think there's any more questions coming through, Conor. So unless you've got anything else to say. Oh, there we go. Actually, yeah, just pass over your details for everyone, Conor. That would be amazing. If they can get in contact with you anyway, whether it's...
Yeah, so it's... and actually, Lawrence Tam is my coach. So
oh, brilliant.
So he told me to big himself up and big him up. But he's great, Australian, and did a very successful podcast. So if you want to reach out to me, you can do that via Instagram. I'm the Health Elevator on Instagram, or LinkedIn, or Facebook, or all the social medias. Or my email address is thehealthelevator@gmail.com. And
there was just a little comment about your book. Is that still in process, or is that?
Lawrence Tam is kicking my butt to get this book out. So it's going to be written I started writing this book 7 years ago, and then like it's coming now. It's
getting there. Amazing. It'll be worth the wait, I'm sure. Amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great night, guys.
No worries. Thank you everyone for joining this evening.